It's absolutely torrential here in the northwest of Ireland, but this rain, like Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, will wash away the filth, and it seems to be doing it. It seems to be a better energy since this heavy rain fell, and has this coronzonic infection we've been dealing with since last Wednesday seems to be now waning. Thank God. It was absolutely sensational in terms of how toxic it was and energy sapping. Before I get to the subject at hand in this video, I want to talk about a few little things from recent days. This afternoon I was in the supermarket and I was waiting at the checkout, and the woman who was getting her groceries was talking to the checkout lady, who obviously was her friend, and she says, "How is your daughter, Orla," whoever her name was? And she said, she's still in bed. 2 months she has had no energy. It's so upsetting, she cannot sleep at night. When she does, she has nightmares. She has pains in her chest all the time. She has no energy and she cannot get to sleep. And her body is not the same girl she used to be. And she says the doctor's putting her on a new medication to boost her energy. And then the woman said, "Have you tried vitamin supplements?" Now, I had to bottle my mouth closed from saying, "Is your daughter Is your daughter needle crafted?" And this seems to be happening all over now. There's huge placements in school at the moment because kids aren't going to school. They're not coming into school. They're not well. They're sick. And they're trying to blame it on this monkey pollen, whatever it is, monkey virus or whatever the fuck it is. No, I think the ones who are sanguine gnosis are still fine. So, it's just they've taken the people's ability to actually put one and one together and think, and that's because of gaslighting. And gaslighting, as we know, is the psychopath's favorite tool to destroy their target's mind, so they don't know what's black, white, up or down. They'll turn you against your best friend, piecemeal, slowly, and make you think that your worst enemy is your best friend, if they need to do that. In other news, this dissolving reality, there's been some very interesting articles came out from studies on quantum theory about how reality is losing its ability to be measured properly. And this might be because of a lack of cognitive focus among human consciousness. There's one of these watch these spaces kind of thing, because that's really fascinating. Another thing, speaking of human consciousness unable to focus, my friend Olivia, who lives in Germany, which is from Eastern European origin, she pointed out today that many of these people, these like social justice warriors, the multi-gender types, all these other ones, they look much closer to sleep paralysis demons than they do to actual what human beings should look like. And that's absolutely bang on. I'm noticing that more and more people are looking like, because, and particularly so they've been given this kind of like this, what's the word, carte blanche, to say they're any gender, would dress any way they want, like a man or woman. The whole non-binary thing is creating Cenobites. And that's why I think the whole thing, we're dealing with like sleep paralysis Cenobites who are now walking among us. And why wouldn't it be the case? The waking world nowadays is a nightmare. I've got to the point now that anyone who doesn't realize there's something fundamentally wrong with this planet and this reality right now, I don't want anything to do with them, because they're hopeless cases that can't see the obvious in front of them. That this reality is fractured and broken badly. And we now have a situation where the Cenobites and the sleep paralysis demons are manifesting as social justice warriors, Z's, men dressed as women inside little girls' bathrooms, raping them, all this other kind of thing. And situations where real women are no longer considered women. They're considered birthing persons. That the real women now are the ones who transitioned over from men to women. It's evil beyond words. And it's demented beyond words, and it's out there, and it's statutorily being pushed by governments and all kinds of bodies. I read a case there of a kid in Wisconsin who didn't even, it was a young kid in like second primary school, who didn't even know what preferred pronouns was, accidentally called a classmate by the wrong preferred pronoun, and the kid was not only thrown out of school, but has been investigated under the same laws in that state that are used for sex criminals, rapists, pedophiles. We have gone insane. Our political structures are now demented beyond words, and we are in a battle to save the human race and the human consciousness. Regardless of where you come from or what your ethnic group is, it's us versus the Cenobites. And what's happening is that the Cenobite infection is now taking over many of the normies and stuff like that. They're becoming like them. So it's basically a battle for the survival of human consciousness at this point. Which, if you read my first book, Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath, that was the first thing I said. We're in a war for human consciousness here against our eternal enemy, the psychopath. Now, and because reality is fractured and damaged at the moment, it's allowing these psychopaths to reach the top of power systems. Some good news, okay? Bono was universally slagged off for going to Ukraine and singing Stand By Me with these guys. It obviously looked fake. More and more people are laughing at the Eurovision Song Contest winning. Because it's obviously like, this is, Ireland is going to be playing Ukraine in the upcoming European Nations League soccer tournament. Is Ireland going to hand wins to Ukraine? Because, this is what it's like. Now, someone very dear to me has 2 children, and she's about to lose her home because the lease is up in July. She's been in this country for nearly 30 years, paid taxes, raised 2 beautiful children, and successful businesswoman. She literally can't find a place to live because landlords and councils are basically giving the keys to Ukrainians, and she's not even the kind of person who talks about these things. She said she went down to the council office to see if she'd get a council apartment or flat for the kids, especially, and she said that the place was full of Ukrainians that were Ukrainians, and her words were, they're all Arabs and Africans, all of them, she said, all of them are African Arabs, Ukrainians with thick accents, and Pakistanis from the Middle East, and were being handed the keys to private rental properties and to council houses, literally walking in the door and being handed them. And she said if anyone dares to say anything about this, they're attacked. So she sorted out something now. She's working on something now to get her. We're trying to help her get a place, and that's looking good. Now, on another story that's a good news that's come out is the World Economic Forum is having its big meeting soon. They basically have an army to protect them because they are terrified. They are terrified. They are terrified of all the information that's got out, and this is why the U.S. has now a free speech minister, an anti-free speech czar, this crazy bitch, and who basically will shut down anything that criticizes the globalist policy and have people arrested and silenced. And this is going on everywhere now. And the reason why they're doing this is because they're terrified. I'll segue, before I segue into that, that's good news, the fact that they're on their knee. They're terrified. And there's now a lot of people figuring out what's going on with the World Health Organizations, basically becoming the de facto world government, and what our politicians are up to. So there's a lot of good news happening at the moment. They're not getting what they wanted, and we can thank by default Putin for invading the Ukraine, for any kind of freedom we currently have. I shudder to think what it would be like right now in Ireland and my country, but then your country too, especially with someone like Campbell, New Zealand, if Putin hadn't invaded Ukraine, we'd still be in lockdown, we'd still be in all the restrictions, and we'd be told that basically whatever the World Economic Forum wants, you're getting, and whatever the World Health Organization wants, they're getting, and if you criticize it in any way, you're going to be charged with a hate crime and sent to prison. Now that's what we'd be like right now, if the Putin hadn't distracted the psychopaths running and the lunatics running our countries over to his side, over towards Ukraine. They would be back to full-scale war upon us right now. Now, about the a few more things before I get to the main topic, but it's important. Uh, the English speaking websites still seem to have this notion that Ukraine has defeated Russia. I don't know where they get this from, but apparently they've defeated Russia. Now, they base this on the fact is that the Russians haven't taken Kiev, even though Kiev and many parts, most of the Ukraine, are not strategic objectives of the Russian invasion. They're after specific parts of Russia. They've captured them and they're holding them, and the Ukrainian the offense against them has collapsed. They're a well-trained army, the Ukrainians now, compared to how they were, say, 20 years ago. But you're still up. So this whole thing that you're reading in your local papers about, Putin's generals are about to arrest him and execute him because of the failure. The Russian invasion of the Ukraine, listen to me carefully now, from a logistics point, standing outside looking in, has been a success for the Russians. They've captured the territory they wanted and they've held it. There you go. They weren't after capturing. That was a lie that Biden told about they were trying to rebuild the old Russian Empire. They didn't want all of Ukraine. They wanted specific areas, and they got them, and they're holding them, and they're never going to go back to the Ukraine ever again. And that's or unless there's some kind of treaty down the road where they get the Americans to admit their biolabs are all there, and so on. I saw another good news thing. Fauci was on TV, and they said, if Donald Trump becomes president in 2024, will you maintain? And he looked terrified. I reckon a lot of them today are now terrified of arrests coming. If Donald Trump goes back in, you could see the fear, and that's what. This is why. Now this is the beginning of it. Okay, I'll get into the topic at hand now. Sorry. There used to be a time, I defined the difference between psychopathy and proto-psychopathy in my books, and there used to be a time when they were quite distinct in their differences. A psychopath being a natural-born predator with no compassion, no sense of compassion for its victims, purely just business, and will do whatever it takes to get what it wants, and will have no guilt about it. That could be anything from murdering someone to taking over a corporation peacefully. They will have absolutely no regard for the lives they destroy along the way. It's purely a predatorial drive, like a shark swimming into a sea of shark smelling blood. It's totally natural. Now, the proto-psychopathy thing is a person who, in a different environment, would have grown up probably okay. But maybe they had parents who beat the shit out of them as babies. Maybe they grew up in a war zone. Maybe they're driven to it by experiences in life that made them that way. And they've become cold and hard. And it's the whole nature versus nurture thing. They've become cold and hard inside. And those people can be reformed, and those people could have been in a different family and a loving upbringing, could have grown up normal. That's the proto-psychopaths now. Don't be confusing them with the pure psychopaths who have very different brain scans and everything when you put them on an fMRI. They're like a reptilian species. That's what Dr. Robert Harris calls them, an interspecies predator. That's a perfect way of describing them. Now, the demarcation line between both used to be very clear. That you had proto-psychopathic opportunists in government who did whatever they wanted to get and maintain power, and they often were very easily sussed out. The scumbag politician who would say and do anything to get elected. It's that kind of thing. Or I'm also talking about things in your daily life as well. Psychopathic power mechanisms and control systems could also be in your job, in your workplace, in your family, in your friendship circle, everywhere. Okay, so they're not just at the very top. Remember that. But watching the ones at the top is a great way. Now, this whole thing of virtue signaling and not really caring, that's pure proto-psychopathy. These people are going, I really feel for these people. I wear my black square up in the front. I wear this to protect you. Oh my God, Ukraine. That's all that kind of carry on. I wear my mask so pregnant Ukrainian men can get abortions. This kind of thing. That's proto-psychopathy. They don't really care about any of those things. They're just purely winning social coups and low praise off their peers by being virtue signaling. But it is a form of psychopathy at the lower end of this proto-psychopathy, at the lower end of the spectrum. This would also include people who are cashing in on other people's suffering. So charities are currently look at all the charities flooding your social media. Ukraine, help Ukrainian sheep who are victims of Russian rapists. That's all proto-psychopathy, and there would be real psychopaths in there using that. So remember that when someone is virtue signaling, they're being at the lower end of a proto-psychopathic behavioral system. Now, there used to be a time when you could always suss them out because they were phonies, where the pure psychopath is too intelligent for something like basic virtual signaling. They're too intelligent for that. And in terms of predatorial drive. So they used to, I'll give you an example, okay, of a classic example of a proto. So we know a situation where I don't know for sure who in government is a psychopath or who isn't, but psychopathic behavior is now the standard within the globalist model. Now, I'll give you an example, right? There was a horrific shooting by a mentally deranged young person in Buffalo. He shot mostly people of colour, but he shot those 3 whites, I believe, shot as well. The kid was white, but he didn't do it. It wasn't a racist killing because the kid was being investigated in school for saying he was going to kill everybody in the school, and he was known to be having extremely psychotic behaviour. So that wasn't a racist killing. Like the Irish media immediately jumped on that and tried to make out that MAGA and Tucker Carlson was directly involved. Really sick shit when you think about it. And that's a lot. That's the fear of them being found out for the phonies they are. But that was a sick person who went in. Now Joe Biden went to Buffalo to totally exploit those murder victims, to totally exploit them, and for his own political gain. Did you hear the gods just? Did you hear the gods just? Thor just announced his arrival. To his own political gain, and basically turned it into a January. He started saying that it was basically Trump people did it. They're now it's open season on people of color because of Trump and Trump supporters and people like that who are not dyed-in-the-wool Democrats. This is sick beyond words, because not too long ago someone walked into a supermarket, a Syrian refugee went into a supermarket in Boulder and Colorado and killed 10 people. Was Biden there? Of course not. You couldn't win any politics out of it. Now that's psychopathic behaviour. Here in Ireland, there's an insidious beast by the name of Leo Varadkar. He's currently the deputy prime minister, but he'll be prime minister again soon because we don't have we have this weird system here now where they're rotating leaders. We don't even have a democracy anymore. We don't even have a country anymore. Where Micheál Martin, the prime minister, the Taoiseach, is involved in a homosexual latent obsession with Zelensky of Ukraine. He is literally falling. He is like a teenage girl looking at his poster of Zelensky on. That's what he's like. It's terrifying. And that's why, people from call themselves Ukrainian can show up here and get free houses, free driver's license, free welfare, the lot. It's bizarre in the extreme. But this guy Varadkar, there was a horrible murder of a woman in the Irish Midlands by a foreign national, by the way. And the first thing he tweets after hearing it, I will make sure Irish women deserve to be safe. You fucking animal. You immediately pandered to the mob with that one. How could you even live with yourself? The first thing you should have said was, if anything, was condolences to the family. No, you were putting yourself up there as a champion of women against who was being currently every straight man in the country was being blamed by default. All the journalists, all the alcoholic cokehead pedophile nonsense in Irish fucking journalism. And you need to understand that journalists in this country are pure excrement. Every last one of them. Every last one of these disgusting beasts started to say, women are not safe in Ireland because of Irish men. And they're all like, and we will protect you, ladies, because we're the men who care. And then all the psychopathic males and high-end psychopathic proto-psychopaths on Twitter, all the Irish guys going, you know, it's time we men acknowledge that we have a problem inside us, that we put women in danger, don't we? Now come over here, missus, and suck me dick for saying this. That's what we're dealing with. Those animals, those fucking animals. Those people, these are not, if you knew someone who was like that, who went onto Twitter and went, I really believe Irish women are in danger from Irish men. Leo's a ledge. You know, get away from these fucking animals. These are predators. And any woman who's stupid enough to think that that's anything other than mind rape, that's what those virtue signaler and white knights were up to on Twitter. They were raping you via the mind. They were looking at that girl dead in the Midlands and thinking, how the fuck can I get me leg over these bitches by playing on that? Or sure, I'll just say that I'm one of the men who don't kill women now. Am I wrong? Fucking animals. Fucking beasts, okay? So then when it turns out that it was a foreign national who brutally murdered that girl in the Midlands, was there any apology or anything to say, we're sorry lads, we didn't mean to blame every man in Ireland for it by default? No. Was there even an acknowledgement that we maybe should be looking at who we're letting into this country? Because did Leo Varadkar go, I will go onto Twitter and say, I will protect Irish women by bringing in a system that will vet and background check every single immigrant coming into the country? No. Because he didn't give a fuck about you women then, because you were no longer a necessity to his political imperative, because suddenly he couldn't bandstand and play, I'm a wonderful man to protect you women. Leo's ledge. Leo's a fucking ledge. You know, these assholes in fucking South Dublin. And then what happens again, next thing is that a jihadist. Now, I'm probably going to get socially hated in Sligo for this, but I don't give a fuck, okay? Because the truth is more important than keeping NGOs in cash, okay? A jihadist beheaded 2 gay men he picked up on Grindr, okay? Now notice how I didn't say a Muslim or a Pakistani or an Arab. I said a jihadist. I'm distinguishing between a religious fanatic, just like I would with a Christian religious fanatic, and a normal Muslim person, okay? I know many fine Muslim people, I know many fine Christian people, but I know fanatics and lunatics on both sides, okay? Now, driven by jihad and crusade, they both give a license to unhinged and dangerous and psychopathic elements within those religions to attack in the name of their creed. So what he did was, after he'd been radicalized in Turkey, and apparently when he was a little boy, he was a nice, normal kid. He goes over to Turkey, he's radicalized. He comes back, he picks up 3 gay guys on Grindr, right? Now here's what happened, and I don't care if I'm in perjury saying this or I'm wrecking the case, okay? He gouged out eyeballs and beheaded. He killed one guy's dog. Yes, he cut the head off his dog. And while the guy's eyeballs were being gouged out, okay? When the coppers caught him, he was doing an Islamic prayer. And he said, do you know how hard it is to cut a human head off? Now, it was immediately apparent that this guy, an Islamic attack, a jihadist attack by an Islamic radical, let's just make the distinction there, had happened in Sligo against homosexual males. So what happens then? Well, of course, what else would happen? Suddenly Ireland as an endemic issue with homophobia, the country that had not so long ago voted 2-1 in favour of gay marriage, is a nation by the only one on earth that ever did it by popular ballot, is a nation of homophobics. And these disgusting, you know who I am, rainbow flag opportunists, animals in fucking Sligo, use the thing immediately to not protect gay people. And let me tell you something, gay people. If you think that fiasco that happened in Sligo, basically celebrating diversity and saying how wonderful it is not to be Irish and straight, and you think that's going to protect you, those fuckers are going to protect you. Those NGO highly paid fuckers are going to protect you when the next attack happens. Well, you're in a fucking sorry state. Wake the fuck up. The best friend that you have, gay men, in the West, is straight white men who are not involved in either Christianity or Islam. We are your best friends. We are fighting for your safety right now. Not your so-called gay rainbow flag industries and GEOs are only interested in political imperatives. And if you have to be sacrificed, like those men were sacrificed, they will gladly do it because it's one more excuse to wage rainbow flags and to say Ireland must be stopped. Irish people must be put out of business. And that's what's really happening. And anyone who denies if what I'm saying now is the truth, you're a fucking lunatic, a dangerous fucking lunatic, okay? We have to protect all our citizens, gay, straight, men, women, children, transgender. I don't give a fuck. They all have to be protected no matter what from rampant crime and behaviours that are, but when you have governments, NGOs, activist groups who say we can sacrifice our own kind in order for the big picture, the narrative, the agenda, then that's okay. It's not okay. There are two men, gay men, were beheaded. One of them was involved in a political party and was involved in open borders access. Now, this is a horrible irony, but I know English people who came to Ireland who were gay because they didn't feel safe because of jihad growing in the UK. And why wouldn't they? So what's happening? The Irish government is saying, here you go. You can hunt down the queers here. Here you go, Mohammed. Hunt the queers down. It's all for the agenda. So you gay men better start waking up and start realizing that the best friends you have are people like us who are seeing through this insanity and trying to protect you. Likewise, the women. When you have a situation now where women, biological women, are now being referred to as, what was the one I heard? Something holes, bioholes, and birthing persons instead of what they are, women, by transitioning males, many of whom are not right in the head, who are now considering themselves the real woman. The best friend you have in this is not the enemy that you have in that, is not the patriarchy that they're telling you about. It's fellas like me saying, no, sorry, a woman has no, sorry, we have chromosomes. You're not a real woman. You know, good if you're an adult and you want to transition, good luck to you. But you're not a real woman. It's just how it is. She's a real woman because she was born with the right chromosomes. And that's the end of it. You cannot define nature. And of course, you're a monster for saying that. And why you're a monster for saying that? It's the same reason you're a monster for saying that, no, I'm not taking an experimental drug that didn't have its full testing. I'm not doing it. You're a monster. It's all for the greater good. If you look at all the atrocities in history, they're all for the greater good. Now, you liberals, you namby-pamby progressive, soy-drinking, progressive parents and stuff, you better start looking at your children and saying, what kind of a future am I leaving to them? One where it's open season on them by unvetted individuals. Now, look, I'm not anti-immigration, really, and I'm definitely in favour of helping people who are refugees. But what we have to have is we can't have an open door policy. Come on in. And also, those of you, and let me tell you something, I just have one thing to say to you people who have an issue with me saying that, uh, how dare, I said, me pointing out that most of these Ukrainian refugees are Arabs, Africans, and Pakistanis who couldn't find Ukraine on a map. Those of you who have a problem with me saying that, two words, fuck and off. And I'll tell you why. These people, these beautiful souls you're bringing in. Now, let's talk about what they've done. There is a war going on in the Ukraine. There are people dying there, bombed. You see them, those apartment buildings riddled in rocket and ordnances from heavy artillery. They're dead people in those, Ukrainian people, right? What kind of a person says, shit, we should pretend we're them so we'll get pity and go into the... Do you want people that are that dishonest? What kind of a person uses the suffering of another people who are going through a war in order to come to a Western country to get free housing, free education, free driver's license, free everything? By pretending to have been one of those people. What kind of fucking person does that? And you're telling me that we should welcome... Could you imagine if your neighbour's house burned down and you went down and collected the insurance? That's what these fuckers are doing! That's how immoral they are, how psychopathic it is. And you're saying, oh no, there's nothing wrong with it. There's plenty fucking wrong with it. There's plenty fucking wrong with it. What kind of a human being capitalizes on the suffering of another race in order to fucking get freebie stuff by pretending they came from that part of the world? It's sick beyond words. Wake the fuck up. This reality is broken. This is not a left or right wing thing. This is about just... I mean, like, a guy comes, your house burns down, and someone else collects the insurance and goes, oh, it was my house. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. Well, that's the fucking dog eat rat.